By the way, beatific vision, I can't forget this one, but as we know, the Roman Catholic Thomistic doctrine of beatific vision, which is dogmatized in Denzinger, by the way, it's not a Thomistic opinion, it is dogma, distresses the intellects being satiated in the eschaton by the essence of God, which, again, Orthodoxy, of course, does not believe that. We never see the essence of God, as St. Maximus says. In the eschaton, we will see the things around God, namely the logi. We will experience the energies. We never experience the essence of God. But the idea that beatific vision is the satiation of the intellect with the essence of God, that's your doctrine of the eschaton? Really? What about the body? You see, I mean, here you have, again, this Hellenic and Platonic doctrine and pagan doctrine of the downplaying of the importance of the body, whereas in Orthodoxy, the body is crucial. Man is viewed as a holistic being. He is body and soul together, and nous as well. So you can't set soul and body in tension, right? You don't punish the body to save the soul. This is why, we have a different version of asceticism, right? Palamas says this to Barlaam. He says, we don't mortify the flesh. We do asceticism to control the passions of the body, but we don't try to punish the body, because the body is not the problem.
Yeah, we mentioned this, and yeah, it all participates to disincarnation. You've mentioned Nestorianism, and again, this is another red line. Of course, there's a disincarnation, and people will start to argue, simply based on philosophical categories. The sacraments, technically there's blood in the body, therefore you only get the wafer. You just need water, so you can just get sprinkled for baptism. All of these things is just slowly, destroying the idea of incarnation, the idea of the fullness of the spirit and body. And you talked about the not the Immaculate Conception, the Beatific Vision. The Beatific Vision is a pure experience of the nous, and this is condemned in the Anathemas against Origen, if you can correct me. The idea is that it's purely about the nous.
Right. Ultimately, beatific vision is the Origenist doctrine, because Origen's conception of man's telos is to see God and never experience any change. So you have to be in a state of perfect stasis. It's a Platonic doctrine that the intellect has to return to its primeval form, or the monad. Right. If it can return to its archetype, the monad, then it will be perfectly satiated in stasis, and then it will never move or change. So Origen's notion of the fall is that before creation, all of these intellects, these perfect forms, namely us, were around the monad, the essence. We were perfectly satiated, and the reason for the fall is that our intellect was turned away from God's essence to changeable things. We fell down into the created world, and that's his mythological version of Adam and Eve. That's all a bunch of nonsense. It's all gibberish. So we don't believe that. That's all condemned in the Confession of St. Sophronius. Rather, the body is good. Creation of Adam and Eve is as it is presented in Genesis. It's not an allegory for Platonism. And so we believe in the historicity of that, and thus, by extension, in the resurrection, the harmony of the body and soul comes back into its proper relationship as it was intended to be in Eden. And we see that most preeminently in the resurrection of Christ, right? When Christ is resurrected, it's the same body. He doesn't have some thought. He doesn't inhabit a thought form, right? He has the same body that he had. Here, put your finger in my side, Thomas, right? You don't put your finger into a thought form. You put your finger into the same body that he possessed that was pierced. So it's now a deified body, and that's the whole point of the resurrection. This, again, what happens in the West, the overemphasis, the obsession with the Hellenic, Platonic, Origenist ideas of satiating the intellect with the essence of God, which, again, I mean, just read Maximus. Maximus does not say that. He would think that's ludicrous. He would say, in fact, all of the ambigua of Maximus are against Origenism, all of it. So he even deals with this question. He says, what is it we'll see in the eschaton? The things around God, the energies, the logi. You don't see the essence of God. And you have a body, by the way. And he actually makes the argument that in the eschaton, we will experience ever-moving stasis. That sounds like a contradiction. Well, if you're Roman Catholic, it would be. But in Maximus' mind, it's not a contradiction because God overcomes the logical antinomies. We're no longer going to be caught in these either-ors. We will be perfectly fixed in virtue, but we don't have some weird kind of mental stasis because we have a body. We can still move around. There's nothing wrong with these kind of spatio-temporal relations. That's why it's a new heavens and a new earth, right? It's not, we don't get transferred into a thought form realm. But you notice when you talk to Western Christians, whether, quote unquote, whether Roman Catholic or Protestant, they don't even conceive of like the body having, what is the point even of a body in the eschaton? Most people think of it like, well, we're just these little ghosts floating around in some realm of spirits or something. Well, no, wait a minute. I thought you believed in the resurrection.
Yeah. Why would it be like literally in the creed? I'm waiting for the resurrection of the dead. Yeah. And whenever it's not, Neoplatonic, disincarnated stuff, it's just bloody stuff. And that's, coming to Orthodoxy, I realize that most of the criticism of atheists and Protestant and nihilists against Christianity, they were aimed at a specific Western understanding. The understanding that, you are saved because of the passion. You are saved because of Christ was tortured.
Yes.
No, you're saved because he fully assumes the entire humanity, and he died, and not only did he die, he is resurrected. There's not one without the other. It's
right.
The person of Christ dying according to the human nature and being resurrected according to the divine nature. And when you understand soteriology, being your salvation through the natures, through being fully incarnated,
right,
and not through the passion and blood and how many wounds and stuff like this, you realize the fullness of Christianity. And that's what I realized coming from this. It's very disincarnated and very
well, and that avoids the prelest and the delusion and the temptation to prelest and delusion that we see in people like Francis or the stigmata types where, I'm not really following Jesus until I have literally all of the wounds and whippings and bleeding. If I'm not really bleeding and having all these wounds, then I haven't really suffered like Jesus did. I'm not really united to Jesus, which is ludicrous. But anyway, all right, where do you want to take us next? Do you have anything you want to?
It was most of the things that we wanted to cover. So just wanted to set this grand narrative showing that political problem lead to ecclesiological problem, lead to theological problem, lead to everything else. So I think this is a good conclusion we have right now, showing that because of the errors of the Franks that permeated through the entirety of Rome, through the entirety of Rome's post-schism history, you have this church in the state that it is now. And
I wouldn't mind maybe in the future too at some point do just a whole show on the Avignon papacy. I mean, that itself is fascinating and it's so bizarre. Maybe down the road we can do a whole just Avignon, Western captivity analysis. Oh
yeah, sure. I will need to study it a little bit further, but that's very interesting. The relations between I thought that Rome was a magic city. I thought that it's special because Peter died there, which is a completely ad hoc.
That's all these arguments we hear from the Roman Catholic apologists that suddenly it doesn't matter during this period. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And by the way, Vatican I appeals to some of these things. So I'm not sure how the appeals at Vatican I can line up with what happens at the Avignon papacy, but I'm sure there's a scholastic treatise somewhere that makes it all work out just magically somehow.
Yeah. I have an anecdote, and it's not about Avignon, but the idea of the Pope, you just need the Pope. You have this present after the Council of Constance, the Council of Constance.
Oh, yes.
Which, you have one Pope that is singled out and just lives in his villa somewhere in Italy, and he says that, the church is not in Rome, the church is not in Constance, the church is in my villa right now. So, yeah.
Is that the same villa where? Is that the same villa where there's the coke parties and the orgies? Is that the same one? Is that the one we identify as where the church is? Okay, the church is my villa.
Yeah, okay. Here goes monetization, but yeah, that's something very interesting, and sometimes you discuss with people that will say that, Peter founded Antioch, Peter, is a disciple of Peter, founded Alexandria, Peter founded many churches, but Rome is special because he died there, but then Avignon,
Exactly, right.
So first of all, you're making ad hoc categories because there's no specific idea of someone dying somewhere consecrating the see for quite a long time.
Good point.
Yeah,
But what they'll say is well, that's all true. Rome is special because the see of Peter is in Rome and it's forever connected to the eternal city. And Peter gave it some sort of magical preeminence because he died there. But during the Avignon papacy, because the Pope has the supreme power, authority, and all that, he can also change it to be in France for a time period. And he can also change it back. So you see, it's like...
This category is ludicrous because if you look at churches in Greece, we have no problem saying that they were founded by Peter or by Paul or by John.
Right.
Paul died in Rome as well. Something interesting as well, Saint Clement died in Sevastopol in Crimea. So if Clement was a successor of Peter, did he have the full charisma of Peter, or and if the charisma of Peter establishes patron see whenever someone died, does that mean that submit to Sevastopol?
Submit to Sevastopol.
It's just a one-off. Things like this. Very, very interesting question. You make ad hoc categories, you try to justify yourself.
It's ad hoc, exactly. It's all ad hoc,
and
right?
That's not very interesting, yeah.
And it's retroactive too. Like something will be, maybe it happened later, but it's also I can retroactively make it true back then. All kinds of sophistry and all this.
Yeah, it's just trying to protect the system. And again, I will conclude on that, and then I will give my thanks. But yes. We are not haters of France and the Franks. We are not haters of Rome. We understand that there was a problem that started with the Merovingian dynasties, Carolingian dynasties, is a clear shift between the Merovingian and the Carolingian, and Rome was the first casualty.
Mm-hmm.
We're not fighting with the seas and stuff like this. Rome was the first casualty, and Rome tried to help us. And so there's this letter, that many Catholic will say is not genuine, and Warnick says it's not genuine, but somehow we still find it very late in Jesuit books, and we start to see it being denounced whenever the papal supremacy and infallibility started to be a thing. But there's this very touching letter of John to Photius that says that there is a problem in the West, and we should not act too fast. We should try to calm down, and we should try to heal the West. That's a plea that John VIII gives to Saint Photius. We should heal the West. We should heal it from this action with the Filioque. Many people who say this letter is not genuine. It still matches pretty well with the action of John VIII with Photius. So yeah. I think this is very touching, and that's what we need to understand. And in the West, we're also close to movements that are a bit more traditionalist, that are a bit more conservative. Of course, we need to tell them, if you want a monarchy, the only way to have a real symphonia, is a real way to have a monarchy that works, is our way. What's going to happen whenever you're going to have a pope that opposes you? Today, the pope is opposing the rights of your nations.
Yes.
Talking to French. To some French monarchists, and I explained to them, we have the same faith as Clovis, we have the same creed as him. You can't even get the baptism of Clovis today in your churches. You are not submitted to another nation.
Yes, that's a great argument. Yeah.
Yeah, but you are not submitted, in your discipline to Russia or to Romania. But if you're Roman Catholic, you're submitted to the ordinary universal magisterium, which is a submission of full submission of the will in matters of discipline as well for everybody. So this is what we need to try to understand. You are taking back not only your history, but you are taking back your spiritual freedom. And I'm not talking about freedom in a postmodern sense of nothing is settled and stuff like this. No. you are reclaiming your legitimate history, and that's what we're doing in France, and that's what we are doing on my Discord server. We have people who are translating this. We have people who find sources from the Gallicans, for example. We are working with local clergy to, for example, right now we are translating the Menologion of the local French saints, and if anybody wants to help us, if anybody knows translating from English to French, please feel free to come. We have a lot of work. This is what we are reclaiming. And it's established, and it's not a conspiracy theory, the French thesis. It's something that's admitted by our church. It's something that's admitted on an academic level. It's something that we know historically. And the real revisionists here are mostly the many Roman Catholics, people who controlled history for quite a while, people who changed the history of countries because there was one who controlled the information for quite a while. And we've seen it with Gregory of Tours. Gregory of Tours, first book, first chapter, second paragraph. There's already forgeries being inserted to legitimize the Frankish, the Carolingians and the Papacy. There's already forgeries. As a French person, we believe that our history starts with the baptism of Clovis. In the first lines of the first book about our history, as a people, Frankish people, there's already Roman forgeries there, trying to rewrite our history. This is terrible.